Keep up to date with everything this year on Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube and WordPress.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening in the world, and welcome to episode 3 of Diary of a Mercedes Fan. It was the Chinese Grand Prix on the weekend, and what a Grand Prix it was, action-packed from start to finish. Nico Rosberg triumphed in that race, and what an emphatic race it was for him from start to finish. He couldn't get off the line well because obviously he was on the soft tyre and everyone else was on the super softs, but after that it was an emphatic performance. Obviously Daniel Ricciardo had a puncture which released him into the lead, but still, I think, to be fair, that was pretty much what anyone else saw of him on the TV cameras. I mean, apart from that and a few times, maybe 5 times at maximum, he just romped away with the victory, and no one else really could touch him on that day. And he's a man in form at the moment, regardless of Lewis's problems. He's a man in form. He is doing what he needs to do, and it's very interesting because Lewis, in all the sessions that he's run so far, hasn't been far behind. So that when Lewis has a clean weekend, it'll be interesting to see how the fight is between them two. But as I said, China, action from start to finish, and it's one Grand Prix which, even though it was not a classic, it was very good to watch as well. So a lot more about China, some news in Formula 1 that's going on at the moment later in the show, and we'll also be talking about what's to come in Russia. But yeah, not much more to say than, let's get on with the show. And so it was Nico Rosberg who triumphed in the Chinese Grand Prix. An absolutely dominant performance from the Mercedes driver. He took his 3rd consecutive win of the season, his 6th consecutive win in Formula 1, and his 2nd at the Shanghai International Circuit, as he won there 4 years ago and took his first victory in 2012. Lewis started at the back of the grid and had a battling drive, which had 5 stops. Can you believe it? 5 stops in that race, and finished P7 in the end. While P4 was on the cards at some point, the medium tyres couldn't hold out in the end and he dropped back to finishing P7. So a battling performance from him at the back, and all in all a mixed result for Mercedes. Obviously bittersweet with the win from Nico, but unfortunately Lewis has not had a smooth start to the season, but that's how the things go sometimes in Formula 1, and I'm pretty sure that he will bounce back at the next round. Championship standings at the moment, Nico leads the Drivers' Championship on 75 points, 36 points ahead of Lewis, who's got 39 in 2nd place. Mercedes-AMG Petronas lead the Constructors' Championship with 114 points, 53 points ahead of Ferrari on 61. The start of the Grand Prix is always quite nerve-wracking in that sense. I wasn't really concerned about Nico in this respect. I was concerned about Lewis because, as Martin Brundle always famously puts it, you're in the carbon fibre zone, and especially after his first lap problems that he's had over the past 2 Grand Prix, you kind of there's every chance that you can get into an accident. And obviously Lewis did get involved in the first lap melee, which wasn't really his fault, but even so, that's the problem. One of the problems from starting from the back. In hindsight, maybe it was better to start from the pit lane, but then that's what we had to deal with Rosberg. Ricciardo got a better start, and then obviously we had a little bit of a melee in the fact that Kvyat went past Vettel. This may surprise him a bit. Maybe he reacted, then he tagged Kimi, and
and then obviously drama was ensuing behind. So at that point, you're trying to witness what's going on, and then Lewis had to come in after losing his front wing, trip it through the gravel, probably extensive damage to the floor and radiator and all that stuff. So I was hoping he could get it back, and he did. Meanwhile, Rosberg's in second place fighting Daniel Ricciardo, and at that point I'm thinking, it's okay. It's okay. With Rosberg I was comfortable because he was on the soft tyre. So even if Daniel Ricciardo decided he was going to try and hold Rosberg up, all Rosberg had to do was wait until he pitted, and he would have got the lead anyway. So I was comfortable in that respect. So once again, focus was on Lewis to see how the car was, and I guess it was positive that he got back to the pits and he could change and do what he had to do. But Lewis is not having the luck at the moment. The rub of the green. It's been a roller coaster for him the whole season, and it's one of those ones where once again it was just one of those weekends where it just didn't pan out, and having to come back to the pits. But he was able to do what he had to do, get out, and then the safety car came out, and that gave us a chance to run. We had to cover ourselves in terms of running all sets of tyres, so we stopped again. At that one point, I think we had stopped 3 times, and it was crazy. But then, on the restart, Rosberg just pulled away, and then that was really the start of everything, really. The dominance from Nico and Lewis fighting through the pack with a few good overtakes. And, yeah, I mean, as I said before, Rosberg was not really... You couldn't see him on the TV. It was that dominant at that respect. But Lewis did very good to finish P7. It would have been a shame. I think at one point P4 was on the cards, but then with the damage to the car, at one point in his stint he wasn't able to make the team. He had to change. He made the softs go 12 laps, and Rosberg made the softs go 22 laps. So you could see... The team was saying that the tyres were getting shredded up just because of the damage to the car. The aero wasn't obviously that fantastic on the car anymore, and obviously it was wearing the tyres a bit more. So you can see the difference. If Rosberg was able to, with a normal car, make the softs run 22 laps, and Lewis could only make the softs run 12 laps, you can see the difference and the damage that he has sustained on the car. But even so, P4 was on the cards at one point, but then Ricciardo was a lot quicker. He drove fantastically well to fight back from his puncture on the first lap. And yeah, Raikkonen, he was a lot quicker as well. So unfortunate that we finished P7. Yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to get past Felipe Massa. But in the end, it was one of those things. Sometimes you have those, and sometimes you don't. But starting from P22 to really... to start P22 and finish P7 is positive, and some points on the board, which is the most important thing. But as I said, with the way it was, he was on soft, then with Lewis, then he went for the soft tyres again on lap 1, then he pitted for super softs on lap 5, then stopped again to put the softs on lap 6, then softs lap 21, and then mediums on lap 30, which the medium tyre by the end was just... Yeah, but the damage on the car, it was couldn't really do much, unfortunately, but there you go. So, as I've said, with the drivers' standings and everything, that's all been done, but a few quotes from the drivers. Rosberg was like, has been a few fantastic days here for me in China. First of all, the fans have been amazing from the moment I've arrived. They're so enthusiastic, which gives us drivers a special feeling. Then racing-wise, it's an almost perfect weekend. Only the start could have been better, but luckily I was able to pass Daniel later on the straight, and from then I could build up a gap. I must say I've never had a better balance on my car than I had today. It was really perfect, so big thanks to everyone who helped me achieve that. I want to thank all the women in my life, my wife, my daughter, and my mother. Their support is unbelievable, and that's really what makes it possible to be doing what I am doing. Now I look forward to Russia, where I started my good run of qualifying results last year. Hopefully I can get a nice run like that again. Lewis said that was definitely a difficult weekend. I got a good start, but it's always tricky being at the back, trying not to get caught up in the domino effect of any contact at the first corner. I tried to avoid whatever happened in front of me, but I got tangled up in it. It was a bit unfortunate, really, but there was always going to be a battle. But I had a lot of fun fighting back through. There were plenty of overtakes from what I can remember. I gave everything I had, and P7 was about the limit. There was nothing left in the tyres at the end. Although it's pretty good overtaking for here, I had quite a lot of damage to the car, which made it difficult to get close on the brakes. From what I could feel, there was definitely some aero loss and possible suspension damage too, as the car seemed to be flexing all over the place. But that's racing. It happens sometimes, and at least I still managed to get a few points on the board. It's a pretty big hit points-wise today, but I'll just have to do what I can to make up over the next few races. Onwards and upwards. Just a few words from Toto. That was a rollercoaster ride today. Nico enjoyed the perfect weekend. He was totally dominant this afternoon, always in control of his performance, and he did a really flawless job. For Lewis, the circumstances couldn't have been more different. He got a great start, tried to stay out of trouble in the first few corners, and still got collected by Sauber, who was avoiding another car coming back on track. We are just 3 races into the longest season in Formula 1 history, so this isn't the time to be looking at championship points, championship tables or points gaps. We just need to keep scoring points right now and continue the work after our reliability wobbles this weekend, and keep working hard to bring more performance to the car and power unit. Also, just to finish off, a few words from Paddy. Starting on Lewis's side, one of the debates we actually had overnight was whether to do a bit more work on the car and starting from the pit lane, which ironically would have been a better decision in hindsight given what happened at the first corner. Equally, Lewis had by far one of his best starts of the season, which ironically contributed him to being caught up in the cascade of collisions ahead of him. So a perfect storm from unfortunate circumstances all around him, putting on the back foot straight away. We could see that there were problems with the car, both aerodynamical and mechanical, affecting him through the low speed corners in particular. Under the safety car, we chose to perform consecutive pit stops with Lewis to get rid of the super soft and enable us to run the rest of the race on the soft, which was the stronger race tyre. As it transpired, his first set of softs were cut from the first corner incident, something we were unaware of at the time, which meant we were then forced to run the medium at the end of the race, rendering our super soft eliminating tactic redundant. So overall, Lewis did a great job to recover what he could with a car that was significantly underperforming. On Nico's side, he actually had a less good start, losing a pace in the first corner, although he was obviously running a less grippy tyre compound than the cars around him. He was, however, able to repass Daniel quite quickly once DRS had become available, and went on to have a straightforward race. An uneventful race from his perspective, but that's not to underestimate the top job he did to manage the car safely within the limits and claim a well-deserved 3rd victory of the season. We now look forward to Russia, targeting a clean and successful weekend on both sides of the garage. I think that's the most important point as well from Paddy, is that we want a clean weekend in Russia. Just a clean weekend where both drivers once again can just not have any problems at the start, not drop back or not have to fight back, because Lewis this year has not taken the lead and romped away with a victory, which, he's had problems in Australia, bad start, Bahrain didn't get a great start, got collected, started from the back, got collected here. So it's going to be important for us to get a good start from there. Just take it easy. Even if we qualify 1-3, 1-2, whatever it is in Russia, just take it nice and easy and just hopefully bring back 43 points in the weekend. Because one thing didn't mention is that obviously in qualifying, that's another thing as well. If you want to go back and listen to any of the SoundCloud coverage over the weekend, the links will be in the description, and there was a Chinese Grand Prix playlist where everything will be included, so please do go back and listen. But in qualifying, the Ferraris did make a mistake, and they could have been on pole, and once again they got caught up in a first lap melee. So we haven't really seen what Ferrari's been able to do yet, and that's going to be the most important thing. going into Russia is that we can't be resting on our laurels. We need a clean weekend because of, as I said before many times, if we are not on form or if we have something wrong with the car, especially this weekend with the resurgence of Red Bull, they look like they've taken Williams' place now as third fastest team. So if we're not on form at the moment, then Red Bull and Ferrari will be there to pick up the pieces, and they were to an extent in China there because Lewis had a bad race in that sense, not being up at the front. So for Russia, we just need a nice, clean and successful weekend on both sides of the garages, and that will be very nice. But there we go, the Chinese Grand Prix. That was a very good one, but then obviously that's now done and dusted. You know, it's in the books, it's in the bag, the points are there, the trophies are there, the champagne's been sprayed, and everyone now is focusing on Russia, which usually is at the back end of the season, but now it's the fourth race, and that's what I will be talking about after the break in part 2. Hello and welcome back to Diary of a Mercedes Fan, and just to start with some news, the World Motorsport Council has ratified changes to the sporting regulations to allow Pirelli more track time to develop its 2017 Formula 1 tyres. There will be 25 days of testing using current cars fitted with 2017 tyre sizes permitted this year and again over the following 2 seasons. In addition, the FIA says there will be an opportunity to test prototype 2017 tyres on 2013 and 14 cars, but those tests will only be permitted this year. So, there we go. That's quite interesting, and obviously the regulations are going to change next year. We're probably going to see wider cars and all that stuff, but I'll get into that in more detail later in the season. But obviously, during this weekend, Pirelli had been crying out for a chance to test those tyres, a chance to make sure that they've got everything ready for 2017, and it was going to be very difficult for them if they didn't manage to do this. So that's very good news for Pirelli, and hopefully can give us good tyres that makes the racing exciting in 2017. But to move on to the next race, which is Sochi in Russia, the Russian Grand Prix. And usually this race is later in the season. It has been for the last 2 years. It debuted in 2014. A Mercedes win for both of those races, and it's both in the 2 seasons where we have secured the Constructors' Championship. Obviously, we will not be doing that this year. It's a 53 lap race, so not too much of a distance, but still one of the ones where you can have an interesting race. Obviously, it's in where the Winter Olympics was, so the track is around the Olympic Park. And I have to be honest and say that it's not my favourite of Grand Prix, and I usually don't really pay that much attention to Russia just because, you know, it's not one of my favourites. Maybe that's bad, or maybe that's the case, but yeah, it's not particularly one of my favourites. But not to be fair, there are still a lot of things that we can talk about when it comes to Russia, and things that we can expect and can see. So Nico Rosberg's the man in form at the moment, and he's obviously going to be very confident going into the Russian Grand Prix. Now, there's a chance, obviously, with every chance that he has going to every race to put on a good performance and win. But could Nico Rosberg take his 4th consecutive victory and his 7th consecutive win in Formula 1? Every chance of him doing that, and with him in good form at the moment and having good confidence, we would expect that him, on the back of the great performances he's had this year, can go into this one and be very confident. But throughout the season, even though Nico Rosberg's been ahead in most of the sessions, Hamilton has only been a tenth or 2 tenths behind. So the gap going into Russia, I think, will still be very small compared to both of them. It's not going to be an easy task for Rosberg, and Lewis at some point will have the luck on his side and will take a few wins this season, it's guaranteed. But then also the fight behind. We've not really seen that much of Ferrari so far. Not been able to see them actually turn the wick up and put some pressure on Mercedes. With this track and the way it is, it's going to favour Mercedes in the sense where the car is going to be very good. It's got long straights, it's a power track, downforce is only in Sector 2 really is the downforce going to be such of an issue. Sector 3 probably will be where Ferrari... Sector 2 and Sector 3 is probably going to be where Ferrari are strong. Sector 1 is fairly Mercedes territory, but even so, we have been waiting to see what Ferrari can do. Turn the wick up, full beans on any given day. Can they challenge Mercedes? And that's one of the things which we'll be looking at going into Russia, whether they can get their act together, sort their reliability problems out, reduce the mistakes, and have an actual proper weekend so we can see where they are. Because at the moment, Ferrari are looking ahead and back because Red Bull had a very, very good race and they've proven that they are getting their act together. They've got a very good car, and once they hone it, they'll be in the fight as well. There's no doubts about that. Maybe not challenging us per se, but they'll be snipping on the heels of Ferrari, and then Ferrari will have to be looking forward and back as well. But yeah, the form guide and the field going into this hasn't have the most comfortable of weekends here in China. So it'll be interesting to see where they are, because they usually in the last two races are kind of behind the top 10. And that means that if Toro Rosso, Williams, Red Bull, who are in that gaggle of cars behind Ferrari, if they don't get their act together, Haas could go in there and sneak a few points. And obviously I'm just trying to think, Russia it's a decent track, and I would think that the Haas maybe could get back into roughly 11th, 12th, 10th, around there, because they're qualified quite decent in China, so there's no reason why they can't. But Rosberg or Hamilton, it's going to be tough because Hamilton has qualified on pole, Rosberg has as well, but Lewis is going to be determined that this lead should not extend in the World Championship, because it's a bit like 2014. Hamilton's got his back up against the wall, he's not had a great start, and it's a 36-point gap in the championship. So it's going to be a weekend where Lewis is going to have to pull things out the bag, get everything perfect, pole position, win, fastest lap, to start reeling in Rosberg, because the effect is great. Because if you're in a championship and you've laid 75 points down on the board, your opponent is only going to be taking 7 points out of you at a time. Even if Lewis goes and wins the next 3 races and Nico Rosberg finishes second, he's still only going to have taken 21 points out of the 36 points gap that Nico has built. So it's going to be one, and obviously this traditionally is the start of the usually where Rosberg's quite good at putting in performances. You know, he started in Russia with a very good one, and you've got Spain and Monaco, which usually he performs quite well there. Canada is a Lewis track, and then we go to the unknown of Azerbaijan, and then you've got Austria and Great Britain. So there's some tracks there which Nico can do very well at, and if Lewis is not particularly careful, he needs to start getting some points down on the board. Even though it's not his fault, yes, it's not been his fault, but he definitely does start needing to reel in the gap, because this season has the potential to have a great season like 2014, and hopefully those two can push each other. One good thing though is that Nico Rosberg is not resting on his laurels. He knows that he's got a very good teammate in Lewis Hamilton, an exceptional teammate. He's a 3-time world champion, and he'll definitely be there in the fight. But there we go. It's going to be interesting to see how Russia is, and I for one can't predict what's going to happen. If it's any of like the 3 races we've had already in 2016, it's going to be a crazy balmy Grand Prix. But one thing I do hope is that Mercedes will have a very just nice, smooth and successful weekend. 43 points, and as I said before, I don't really mind who comes first and who comes second, but just a strong weekend from both drivers. So this concludes episode 3 of Diary of a Mercedes Fan. I will be back over the weekend with coverage over the Russian Grand Prix weekend, with coverage on SoundCloud, also coverage on YouTube with Diary of a Mercedes Fan after the Grand Prix, and also keep up to date with everything that's going on the Twitter feed during the weekend, and also on the blog as well. The links are in the description. Thank you for listening. I'm off to get some water because my voice is breaking slightly. It's a good day here in London as well, so I'm hopefully going to go and do something in the sun, and hopefully you can enjoy your day wherever you're listening. But yes, it was a great Grand Prix for Nico Rosberg, and he's on form. Can he take that and make it 7 consecutive wins in Formula 1 in Russia? Only time will tell. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon.